We're back here in beautiful Easthaven County, where we are going to continue the development of this all new city. And if you feel it's starting to turn a bit into a meme that the city is not yet named, don't worry about it. The vote is ongoing right now over on the community page, where you guys get to decide what we're actually going to name it. We're getting closer and closer to starting the development of downtown, as we're slowly but surely filling out all the other inner city areas surrounding it. We've just completed Battery Hill as well as the outermost parts of Winter. So today we'll focus on completing Winter, which is to the immediate north of downtown, as well as getting started on Coleridge, which is to the immediate south of downtown. So before we start developing this tricky narrow strip of the southern part of Winter that is going to border directly to downtown, let's just take a little recap, a little tour of what we built in the previous episode. I wanted to make this a pretty interesting area with a bit of mixed developments throughout, which is why on the very northern border here alongside Cypress Street and Elk Street, we have some industrial manufacturing as well as a bit of warehouse units. This is still active. It's a little rundown, but it's not like it's like a completely dead area. There are still plenty of jobs here. We also have a relatively modern office establishment here, and then I really liked this asset here because while it is an industrial manufacturing unit, it kind of looks like it houses some company offices as well, so it's a pretty fun mix. I added in some surface parking because obviously the density is a little lower out here, and as a good way of kind of separating, create a little space at least between the industrial unit here and a bit of low rent public housing. We also have a few storefronts here so that you can do a bit of grocery shopping. Now, before we fill in the remaining areas here in Winter, there are two things I want to do. One of them is a little more, role play / extra characterization of the city type, because what I'd like to do is create like a sub neighborhood in Winter. Some cities have somewhat official neighborhoods and then a ton of unofficial neighborhoods that the locals use. So while the Upper East Side isn't necessarily an official neighborhood in New York, it's probably recognized by, everyone. But the Upper East Side is actually comprised of several like sub-neighborhoods such as Lenox Hill. And I think it would be really interesting if we have Winter, but then this narrow stretch here, which has no industry and is the transition, like a real inner city transition to downtown, is known by locals as something more specific. So if we grab the district tool here and we enable Anarchy, we can actually do just that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a subsection of Winter, and we're just going to follow the existing boundary lines here that we've already established for this southern part of the area. And then I think I'm going to call it Inner Winter, but this is pretty much an invitation for you guys to give me a name suggestion, maybe a bit of backstory so that we can get this changed up, such as this suggestion for Coleridge by Lab Code Goat, which is now the official backstory. But the cool thing is that I can now access, I can access all the statistics for this subsection of Winter. I can even enable specific district policies, but I can also just access the entirety of Winter as, as the neighborhood and district the city officially recognizes it. And, this is probably the area that the city uses to gather census data and whatnot. So I think this is a really cool thing I want to do a little more in the future as well. The other thing I want to do before we start the development here is we've got a stretch here separating Battery Hill from Cypress Street. And I was considering adding in a bit of development, but then I thought maybe I should actually just turn this into a recreational area, just like we have on this side here. Because I kind of want to make the hilly feel here continue to be prominent, and I kind of fear that if we line this road here with developments, then it's going to look a little less separated, which is not really what I want. So we're just going to go with the vanilla path, quick and simple, nothing fancy, and just kind of draw that throughout. Let's just enable contour lines so that I try to keep the elevation somewhat manageable, even for pensioners. And And no disrespect to my older audience, by the way. Just trying to be nice here. Let's see if we can get this run in here. And if I enable Anarchy, I can even get a crossing going, which would be really nice. We'll get in a bit of a segment here as well, near the additional elementary school we created. 15 degrees. I mean, it is quite steep, but it's not too bad, right? And we'll just get a few connections to the actual street layout we have as well. So something very simple like this is what I want to see. Then I'll add in a few more trees and bushes. But I think at the same time, I do want to expand on the development of Battery Hill a bit down here, because I kind of feel like Amity Lane here kind of ended the development segment pretty abruptly. So what I want to do is grab one of these really narrow lanes, these custom ones, one-way lanes we have, and just kind of bring it down here. Now this is going to be pretty much a 20% slope here, which I think is that's a lot, but it's also hopefully going to look really nice with some development. So I'll turn this into a key so that I get this type of development first and foremost, at least. Just get all these lots to grow, right? Then we can, let's see what I want to do here. I don't want development alongside Cypress Street, so I'll turn that into a key area as well. And then we'll just, we'll zone this as well. As soon as that is starting to develop, I'll deselect this one. And actually, while we're at it, let's add those last few row houses here. Now there's a lot of elevation at play here, so as you guys probably know by now, I am going to use plenty of trees to kind of cover up some of the imperfections. But we also did have to add some big old oaks to this recreational path anyways, so that's perfect. We'll add in a few London planes as well. I have to... Actually, I kind of like if this row house kind of extends a bit into the sidewalk here. I think that's a fun little feature on its own. But yeah, trying to add a lot of bushes here to kind of cover the imperfections. Adding in a few pine trees as well throughout, or I guess technically they're called spruce. We've actually just unlocked the large city milestone, and I guess usually I would kind of just skip that and say, all right, whatever. But the rewards, I mean, 300k, that is, we don't have that much money currently, so that's actually pretty nice. Let's see what else this unlocks. I mean, we can borrow more money, so that's very realistic from an American point of view, but I'm not really gonna, hopefully I don't have to, but let's just see. I mean, the 300k we just got, very important. That quadrupled our current cash reserves. And this new little pocket of development here, I think turned out quite nice and added just a bit of extra character. I am gonna start by developing any like potential focal points in a winter before I place down the buildings, because I'm hopeful it's gonna make it easier to place down the buildings and that I can also avoid having to demolish some stuff I've just placed then. We'll see. I think I'm gonna kick off with a park though. We've got a very interesting block here, very awkward shape, that I think would be a good fit for the new circle park we got in the detailers patch. And maybe we'll incorporate this block here as well to make the entirety of this area here a park. So a park that is kind of split between downtown and inner winter. But we're going to start with this segment first because we're not developing downtown as of yet. So we'll grab Parks and Recreation, and we have this ring park. A cozy path cuts through this minimalistic park. I think I want to disable Anarchy so that we'll remove the existing trees here as we place it. And then I kind of want to align it like this, I think. Now, it looks good on its own, but we can, of course, make it much more customized to fit within this space here. So I'll just be grabbing the pavement path, and I'll just find a good snapping point here, disable snapping, enable Anarchy, and then I'm just going to continue this so that it meets this little road here, and we're gonna do the same thing down here. Do we want a crossing? I don't think so. I just kind of want to connect it here, and let's just see. I might want like a skate area here actually, so maybe we'll just leave this uninterrupted by any paths, and then down here we'll get in one additional path connecting to this area, and we might get an additional small path here, or we might remove it. So yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So like I said, I kind of want some skate ramps here, like a custom skate park maybe. So let's just get busy with some surfaces. I don't want to expand the existing tile surface here. I'm gonna grab something else, something that might look a little more interesting indeed. Maybe if we go for one of these slightly more custom ones. Gray paving stone, gray walking stone. Are these massive? Yeah, they are pretty massive, but I think it looks pretty good actually. So we are gonna go for that version, and I'm not gonna fill up all of this area because I want to kind of squeeze in a bit of additional grass actually. So let's just designate this segment as our scale. Oh wait, that actually expands across any pavement, so I'm gonna have to align this a little more carefully so that it actually follows the outlines of the paths here, because I don't really want this to kind of, you know, have a bit of a weird shape here. So I'm just gonna try and align that a little better. Same thing out here. Fortunately with snapping this is relatively easy, so it's not like it's a massive issue. But it's not going to integrate as seamless alongside the border here, unless I make a lot of small adjustments. But this is actually looking pretty good, I think. All right, the grass used here, I think, is this one. So it's kind of well manicured. You can see someone actually attends to it. And I think that's fine for this inner circle here. But I think for the remainder of this area, I want the grass to be a little more wild. So I guess the question is whether we should just stick with these existing surfaces here. I might just do that for now actually, but I do want to kind of make sure this is separated with some well manicured grass, I think. So we'll just enable snapping so that I can snap to the new surface here. And I don't have to be as careful here because this surface type, this vanilla surface type, is not going to go above any like pavement paths, something like this. So let's see, it would surprise me if the skate ramps aren't like neatly filtered with the Find It mod. So we'll go to props, and let's make the menu a little bigger here, and then we'll go for park props. And I can already say we're also gonna have a small dark dog park, I think, for this area. And of course I need to use some of these food carts as well. I want to use one near the like skate park. You can get like some New York style sausages, maybe a hot dog. Then we have some slightly more dedicated food stalls to maybe place, maybe over here. We'll see. Let's get started with the skate stuff before I get off on a weird tangent here. So I don't think we have space for like a massive ramp, so we'll just have an end ramp here, I think. Like here. And then we might just be able to squeeze this in as well. I'm just gonna flip it a bit. Actually, probably better like this though, so that you can kind of use that in continuation of the ramp. By the way, I know nothing of skating, so apologies in advance for any weird, odd things I may be creating here. It's kind of like trains, you know. It's an interesting thing, but I know nothing of it. We'll get some of these park rails in here. Park box. Yeah, sure, why not? Maybe one on either side. And these ramps are entirely too big, so can we fit anything else in here? Maybe I'll just place two of these. I'm not really sure what they are used for, but I'm sure some of you will know. And I think that's our skate park. So something that might be pretty cool is add a bit of graffiti in here, some graffiti decals. I'm sure it would be frowned upon by the city, but I think these tiles, this surface here, it lends itself pretty well to some graffiti or some stickers or something like that. Man, that was hard. I think I got there in the end, but yeah. Let's just see. I want to get some that is kind of like small scale, not too crazy, and add in a bit of different stuff to kind of make it a little messy as well. I don't imagine that the graffiti stuff that's been placed here is like super well organized. So I think something like this would be pretty cool. This one is a little too big. I think maybe that's actually fine. Or can I get some on the side of the ramp here? I think I can. So let's just see if we can kind of cover this up with some of the smaller versions here. And I think that's fine. We are of course also gonna add some stain decals here, but I think I'm going to try and opt for some of these that are lightly stained, so they are not, you know, they're not as crazy as some of the other ones. And I kind of want to wrap up with like a fence or a guardrail of some sort, so that you don't end up out on the road by accident. And maybe I need to do like a search for the actual prop version and see if I can find what I'm looking for. Maybe this residential fence is actually just what I need. I don't want to place like actual barriers, road barriers. I think that's gonna look a little weird. We're gonna try this one and see how that's gonna work with like fence mode. Yeah, not like this. Ah, perfect. Absolutely perfect. So about here, and then we'll have a bit of an entrance. And I need a curved stretch here. And I think this is good enough. So I'll just be seeing if I can remove a small segment down here, so that you can enter here, and maybe even remove a segment here as well. And that's about it. And then I think down here we're gonna have like a tiny food court of some sort. So I'm just gonna grab one of the other tile surfaces, and I think I'm just gonna go for a slightly custom creation here, where we have some invisible paths, so something like this, and then it can connect up to this segment here, and just we'll fill in the remainder of the space, and then we'll have our well manicured grass in between here, something like this. Just get that aligned so that it covers it up. And then we'll grab our food props, and I think we have quite a few here underneath the park prop menu. So we have some of these that are like, they look a little more permanent in nature. So I'll just grab one, add that in here. We'll grab, let's see, this version here and add that. And we have a food cart as well. We can just add here very close to the road. That probably gets placed here each morning. And then what I need is some table sets. So I'm just gonna search for table set, and we're just gonna search wide so that we get all the available sets, because I think I wanna use... Actually, we should probably just use this one. That's probably the most fitting for a place like this. We'll move to the opposite end here to add our little dog park. And those props all seemed to be gathered within the park menu here. So we've got some hoops, we've got like a few tunnels, stuff like that. So let's just grab, let's see, we've got dog park drinking fountain, all right. A tube and a couple of additional tunnels and some very interesting colors. We can use some of these hoops here. Maybe we've got a ramp, and we got a small ramp over here, and then there's like a platform, a bunch of weird different stuff here. And I guess we need some seating for the it's not called dog parents, but yeah, lack of a better word. I need to grab some net lanes though, because we need to fence this in, I think. And we're just gonna go for this variant here, which I really enjoy using. Just gonna fence in this corner here so that you don't see your dog just running wild. We'll have a small opening here, and that's looking pretty good. Benches for dog parents. So my idea for the grassy area here within the circle is that first I'm gonna use better Bulldozer to just get rid of the existing tree props here, and then I imagine that it's going to contain a few large trees, but otherwise it's gonna be like just like a regular hangout spot where young hip people are gonna come in the summer, and you know, they're gonna relax, they're gonna chill here, maybe drink a few beers in the evening. And you know, maybe you'll picnic here as well. And I'll just be adding a few of these slightly smaller trees because I don't want to cover up too much using the oak trees. So let's just see. I kind of want to mix it up a bit as well. So we'll just do a little replacement of this one with an apple tree, something like this actually. But otherwise, not really do a ton of detailing. Although we are gonna have more benches out here. Now this stretch here, I kind of want that to be like pretty wild and overgrown with like a lot of like wild flowers and stuff like that. So we're gonna go pretty heavy on like the flowers and stuff. It's in the name of biodiversity, something which is sorely missing from most major cities today. So this is pretty much just my own opinions on this matter, kind of creeping its way into this episode. What I would think would be cool, ideal, would look good as well. So yeah, you'll have to bear with me on this one. But yeah, we're going pretty simple here. Some different bushes and some of this stuff here, and I guess there's like a sign here maybe that also lets you know that it is strictly forbidden to kind of walk through this area. What do we need? We need benches. That's what we need. I grabbed a specific type of bench for the small dog playground here, which I think would align better with the fence, so it has no backrest. But I think for the actual park, where you're gonna use this garden bench 02, because it's pretty nice looking. It has this kind of old school vibe going on, and I probably shouldn't. Should I place it on the actual grass? Probably not. So we'll just try and kind of squeeze it in half and half so it doesn't take up too much space from like the path here, but at the same time I don't want it completely on the grass because that's yeah, it's not gonna work out. Get a few placed in here as well, something like this, and then we need a trash can. Or is garbage bin gonna be? Nah, trash can is fine. And something that looks kind of rustic, maybe this one. And there actually is a dog park sign. It doesn't get any better than this, does it? So let's just find this one and get that placed in here. On either side and in different colors even. I was just looking for like a very small sign we could like place. I mean, these signs are pretty fun. So just think I'm just gonna place a couple of these, not for any specific reason other than them being fun and adding to the vibe here. And then I think I'm gonna use the picker mod to grab this light pole here, because I think that's a very, very good fit for a park. And they only kind of followed a central pathway here, so I think it's only it only makes sense that we add in a few additional ones to kind of illuminate the circle, the opposite of square. I mean, it's not the opposite. Whatever. Stop talking, man. Adding in a few here alongside this wild stretch as well, and it's starting to really come together, I feel. So I've just added in a few of these Finn beach decals here, a bit extra here in the dog park, and it's kind of just to signify that this is a very active place that is being actively used. So it's really hard to keep the lawn completely healthy at all times. But I think that's about it. I think one thing I do want to change though is I do think I want one massive oak tree to kind of be the center point here. So I think we're gonna grab one and just place it right next to the two benches we have here in the very center. And I think that's gonna be a wrap for this park for now. But as we continue on with the addition of new neighborhoods, I obviously think we should create its own tiny little district here so that the name of the park is also going to poke through. Yoink. And there's a fun fascination with the word Sterling for all the auto-generated names, but it's not gonna be Sterling Park. I've just named it Emerson Park, taking its name from Emerson Street that cuts through all of Winter and downtown before terminating just before Coleridge. But this one is very much up for debate as well, so if you have a suggestion, let me know in the comments and we'll get this changed up. We might do additional focal points here in Inner Windsor, but I really do think it's due time we get some actual development placed down. We're like 25 minutes in now or something. So my idea is that Emerson Park is going to have a cluster of buildings surrounding it that are some of the like most historical or nice medium density buildings here in Inner Windsor. I think it makes a lot of sense for developers to, you know, they've historically tried to prioritize lots that are, you know, that faces like recreational areas or green spaces. We also see this extensively in New York. It's something I really noticed when I visited Manhattan, at least. So we're gonna do the same here. Now, of course, the tricky part is to make sure that we don't have too much like medium high density development here, because this is a transitional zone. It's not supposed to be as dense as downtown. And I want to keep my options open for downtown. So let's just expand the menu here. We're gonna go for the North American theme. We will say medium buildings. And then I think I'm just gonna turn the building level to 5 just to kick off with this process, because that should give me some of the more historical looking buildings. And I think you know, a building like this is like a really good example of what I want. So this is a very beautiful old apartment building. I'm not sure it's gonna be a corner lot though, because I prefer the mixed use for the corners, because we can of course have shops at the very bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get this placed. We can always move it around. We will probably shuffle many of these around just to get the fit we want. But I need some sort of a corner lot here. That also looks kind of old. I think this one maybe actually... I think this one might just do. Alternatively, I go into the European theme and grab something like this. Which also has this really old look. I could do that. Let's go for this one. I think this one is a fine fit. It actually does look pretty old as well. But there was another building in the European style I want to use, and that's this one, I think. Yeah, I definitely want to use this one somewhere. So I'll just make sure to... Or was it this one? This one is pretty nice as well, so I think we might just place that on the opposite corner here. So now we have two pretty beautiful old developments on either corner. We can move it, and then grab this bad boy here. Just kind of get that. Actually, I don't want to stitch that into it, because there's like this nice fire escape here on one side of it, which I kind of want to keep. But that leaves a bit of space here we can fill in, maybe with a row house, something like that. But I'm just gonna take an additional look and see what we can find. We have this building as well, which is also a beautiful old development, which I think you would very much try to face towards the open park here. So we're just gonna get one of these placed here. This one is fantastic as well. It's a little, the lot size is a little deep here, so I have to kind of keep that in mind. But I think maybe I can just squeeze that in here, and then we can just kind of kind of move these around, move this a bit out of the way. I'll need to delete some of the trees with the better bulldozer mount, but for now we're not looking into any of the detailing or the fine tuning. We're just getting stuff placed. We'll increase the lot width to 3, but I don't want to go, you know, beyond that. And then let's just take a look, see what we can find. I think this corner building here would also be a good fit. We're gonna move a bit away from the park so that we're facing Barlow Street. Getting that placed, and then we might need a substantial corner building down here as well. Or something that looks alright at least. This one is kind of tall, so I'm a little... Yeah, I don't think I need much more medium density as is, but I think maybe we should just place one of these, this one on one of these 2 blocks here. I think that would be a pretty interesting addition. Actually, we're gonna go for the corner lot here. Or maybe this corner, because now we're moving very, very close to actually that is technically downtown, so I think we'll just grab this corner. Yank. Now this is a building which I kind of want to turn into a mixed use, so to achieve that I'm gonna go ahead and grab some I'm gonna go ahead and grab some low density commercial, kind of see if I can fuse that into like the base of the building, something like this. And then we'll grab can I adjust that? Actually that's all right. I guess I don't have to change that any further. Maybe just move this a bit further back, and it's now mixed use. It's magic. So let's just continue with this approach, get the medium density buildings placed first, as they are the ones that are gonna stick out the most, and then fill in the rest with some row housing. I removed the chunky medium density apartment building here, but otherwise I am pretty happy with this start, and I don't think we'll be adding much more in terms of medium density to this area. I have some general trends and an audit here too. So for the general trend, it does seem that this area surrounding Emerson Park is the most dense one. We have 3, or actually more on this side, but we have a good handful of beautiful buildings facing the park, so it's definitely the most dense in here. And then as for oddities, I think the tallest building of the district is actually placed way out here, but I just kind of thought it would be fun to have this building placed here. It kind of fits in neatly, at least when I do a bit of surface editing. And something that's important for me is that the skyline, so to speak, of Inner Windsor doesn't obstruct the view of the future downtown. And as we check here from Battery Hill, things are looking pretty good. You will easily be able to see the more dense core of downtown in here. So the next step is adding in a bunch of old historic row houses, probably a bit of low density commercial stuff as well, maybe even a tiny bit of surface parking. But something the row house usage is highlighting is that this particular block here, nestled in between Cypress and Lilac Street, is probably just a bit too big. We could add like a very small road here to kind of just divide it, make it a little more interesting. Especially now that we're using row houses. So I'm just gonna grab this custom one-way street we built, and then I think we'll branch off right next to this apartment building. And I'm just gonna disable snapping here because we're manually placing stuff, so the The angles aren't all that important as far as if we were like zoning, and then I think we'll just connect it up right here. So this makes it a little easier to squeeze in the row house buildings, and it's also gonna make the street real cozy when all the development has taken place. Whew, that took a long time. Lots of plopping, lots of detailing there at the very end. But I'm also very happy with how winter has turned out. It's probably one of the most diverse and unique areas I've created. And I don't think I've made a district that looks like this before, which is saying something because I've probably used all of these buildings before. But I tried to be as creative as possible, so let's just take a little tour. I think if we start over on this in this square here, it's got its own character. There's a bit of a strange mix of buildings here, quite a bit of surface parking as well, but we are also nestled in between like a major road and some train infrastructure, which is naturally going to affect property prices negatively. So very happy with how this turned out. We've got lots of buildings being fused together here, just trying to get creative once again due to the limited amount of assets we have. And I also just think that I kind of wanted this area to have this slightly rundown, less gentrified feel, because it is right next to the public housing and some of the manufacturing industry we built in the previous episode. As we move into the center here surrounding Emerson Park, once again, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. We have some of the more fancy older buildings with lots of details and decorations kind of facing the park. Very happy with that. And then up here, things got a little crazy. Yeah, kind of a spontaneous decision to get a basketball field in here. But you know, you can shoot some hoops here with some pretty impressive views of not just the bridge, but also, you know, it's very hilly here. So I'm just really happy how this turned out. And then a gas station right next to it, which is also a bit of a weird mix. And speaking of weird and unique, here's an actual empty abandoned lot where nothing is currently under construction. Yeah, so this is just a little sign that like gentrification hasn't completely overrun winter just yet. And maybe this will be a vote in the future, you know, letting you guys decide what we should actually develop here. So as we move out to this corner block here, then this actually turned out a little more dense than I had initially planned. But I guess my thought process was that, you know, this has to be prime real estate given the location and the amazing views of the bay here. So I do imagine that, you know, this is just a, you know, sign of times to come that we will have a lot of high density all around the riverfront here, which I think is going to be an interesting look, primarily residential as well, you know, given the location. But then again, I did make a bit of contrast because then we have this block here, which has a much lower density. It even has like small grocery stores or whatever. And then once again we jump to, well, I guess this is the only high density building I ended up placing, and I just couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself but to think some developer or investor out there would buy whatever low density stuff was here and then, you know, build some luxury condos that nobody can afford. But then for another interesting contrast, we have some messy surface parking back here and the little playground. Oh, I also really like this row of row houses, all painted in the same color. I imagine the same developer kind of stood for all of these way back then, and then this just kind of turned into a bit of, I don't know, like an overgrown. It's not even a park because it's not really accessible. So yeah, not really sure. But like I said, overall, very happy with the result. And something I especially wanted to achieve was that you could visibly see from Battery Hill that things started to develop more, the density would increase, but it wouldn't overtake any of the potential views of downtown. And that is certainly not going to be the case. So if this is successful, downtown should be just a bit more dense than winter. And we can sort of replicate some of the density we've built here in winter over here in Coleridge, while of course trying to make that unique as well. And then it's all gonna tie together perfectly. Perfect balance. Now, as important as all of this looking nice and me being happy with the build is the fact that we're actually turning a consistent profit now. I know I say this and then it wouldn't surprise me if it completely tanks and goes red, because that has happened before, but it seems to be consistent, and this is very important because the financial situation was getting a little dire, I guess. Anyways, the next development I want to do, I'm actually going to cheat a bit because it's technically going to be located within downtown, although on the very outskirts. because we have a stretch of free land here, which I think would be perfect for some modern low-rise offices. This is something I see so often close to train tracks, or particularly train tracks that are close to the main central station in a city's downtown. It's not going to be high density because we're on the very outskirts of downtown. It's just going to be low density, big office buildings, and we have demand for it as well. So I'm hopeful that's going to be something to provide a bit for the city as well. So let's just grab some of these level 5s, because I assume they are the best looking. They look the biggest as far as low density goes, at least. We are gonna disable snapping, and actually I'm gonna enable snapping, or sorry, I mean Anarchy, and we'll place this one on the outskirts. So we'll allow this one to have some surface parking because it's the outermost of these buildings. Then we are gonna move to this one here, which has more workplaces, presumably no surface parking. We've got this thick boy as well. They have a bit of parking, but it's not really all that much. And then I need something to fit in here, preferably without any parking. So let's just see if we can find something. And we certainly could. We found this one here. So I'm just gonna get that placed as well, and remove 1 or 2 of these major trees here. And then we need to do some landscaping. But when I say landscaping, I mean like boring office park landscaping, the most boring landscaping you can imagine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove these regular grass surfaces from the buildings here, and then we're just gonna spray paint this well manicured zero biodiversity grass across this entire area, because that is what these offices would like. Fresh grass and nothing else. There's a bit of a reach here I want to try and respect as much as possible. And let me complete it. There you go. I think a little thing we can do here as well is just add in a key segment here as well as over here, so that this is kind of separated a bit. What is this? Naturally grown bushes? Not in my backyard, man. Get away. I do imagine they would maybe plant something to kind of separate slightly from the train tracks though. So I am going to grab the spruce versions. These, I don't want the biggest one. I want these, what is this? Mature and young. Because I don't imagine this area is all that old, but they would have just planted like a wall of these to kind of absorb a bit of the noise coming from the train tracks. And wow, there's a big height difference between mature and young. We're probably gonna go for young instead, at least for most of them. So I've just deleted a bunch, and we're just gonna rebuild the line here. Great, and that's it. That's it for the landscaping. We're not planting anything here. We just have some nice straight grass to look at. Although I do kind of feel I have to cover up this area here now, because otherwise that's just gonna, like this line here is just gonna stick out like a sore thumb. So let's just get in a bunch of bushes here. Wait a minute. These two assets are identical. Almost. Yeah, I'm not sure why I didn't notice that, but okay. And this one is effectively identical with that one as well. Oh man, this is slightly embarrassing. Let me just find another version to place. Maybe this one. Yank. Yeah, that's fine. There we go. And just want to streamline the colors. This one has a very boring color palette, so let's just kind of move that to all the rest of them. And would you look at that? A boring suburban office park, but not in the suburbs, right here in downtown. And I think this new office development is going to be the wrap on this episode here. So for the final cinematics, I'm probably gonna incorporate some first-person walking here in winter and maybe other parts of the city as well. which I hope you guys will enjoy. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, all the feedback and support. I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.